You're listening to the Veterans Impact Show, continuing the mission of service and bringing together our civilian and military communities. Brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Don't worry, retire happy and work with us.
Good day. This is Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran, and my co-host is in the studio, Chuck Wright, Texas Veterans Commission, Marine. So many wonderful things you do for veterans in the state of Texas, Chuck. Sorry I can't be there, but this bronchitis has been a real pain.
Yeah, we won't let him in. We won't let him in the studio. And as usual, Jim's jumping forward on the script. Welcome, second show of the new year. We're excited about it. Before we jump too far in, this show does not happen without the technical skills of Nathaniel Smith from Ascend Podcast. I keep wanting to say Ascend Media, but unfortunately that one's been stolen. Nathaniel does an incredible job. He's been doing some great work. He's true, complete media, which is why we're trying to get him to change the name, but they're working on that, and et cetera, et cetera. And then, quietly off screen, but frantically making faces at me and waving and all that stuff, the lovely and talented Mrs. Diane Blythe. And yes, they are a couple. We are big believers in inter-office hanky-panky on the Veteran Impact Show.
Thanks, Chuck.
So back to the show. Now that I've gotten this show completely off on a different tangent, we do welcome you. We welcome you, our viewers on Facebook, or for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, or for those of you that are listening to us with the No Bull Network down in South Texas. Our friends in California that I believe can actually see us. Oh man, did you guys get the short end of the stick? Jim and I like to say we have faces that were made for radio. So, yeah, we're going to talk about, and I just finished yesterday with our Texas Veterans Commission training meetings, which is making sure we're complying with all the laws and generally very boring. And I hope Tom doesn't hear that. I'll be thrown off the committee again. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to talk about veterans, and we're going to talk about veterans in Texas, and this is a subject very, very near and dear to my heart. Texas is number one or number two, depending on which study you look at, in terms of veterans populations. But let me talk just a little bit, and our veterans know this. But let's talk about what veterans bring to the table. Most people don't know veterans have a higher median income than non-veterans. Now, some of our veterans that are out there that are unemployed, and it's also weird because they actually have slightly higher unemployment than our non-veteran friends. And there's part of that is you automatically qualify for 6 months of unemployment when you get out. So it tends to skew the numbers a little bit. A lot of our veterans start out and go back to school. We're going to talk about all of that. But the bottom line is, despite all of that, our veterans make more money. And our Governor Abbott, is very committed to bringing more veterans to Texas. With that in mind, these are good citizens, these are good employees, and these are the things we're going to talk about. But with that in mind, and I'll let Jim start asking questions, we have a very robust in Texas, both state and quasi-government and non-government support system for our veterans. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to focus a little bit today on the Texas Veterans Commission. And so the easiest way to find them is to Google Texas Veterans or Google Texas Veterans Commission. The website will pop up, and let's go back to the main page. We drilled down on camera to the, there we go. So front page pops up, and as you can see this, it says find assistance by county. All you've got to do is click on your county, and you start to get plugged in locally. And so Jim is going to ask some questions, and I'm going to try to answer some questions, and we're going to have some fun as we kick off the new year.
Well, Chuck, I think for most veterans, whether they're new veterans or senior veterans, a lot of people don't know that the Texas Veterans Commission provides VA accredited representatives that have access to everything to be able to help you with all your paperwork in terms of being a veteran. It's not, you don't have to fight this bureaucratic battle by yourself. There are professionals. Dallas, for instance, James Henderson is fantastic, and you are very familiar with that. So the first thing that most veterans need to know is within each county, the Texas Veterans Commission has an office, has an officer, and they can help you with all of the paperwork, all of the benefits, and understanding that. That's not true in many other states in the nation.
Oh, exactly correct. That is a huge advantage Texas has. So if you saw that map, click on your county on that map. It's the County Veteran Service Officer Program, and TVC is responsible for their training. Those people are actually run by the county. Some counties do a great job. Some counties not such a great job. I don't know what the cutoff is, but we have, for the 254 counties in Texas, we have over 175 county veteran service officer programs. For those of you that are in extreme rural counties, call the Texas Veterans Commission. In fact, if, go to the website, just call the main number and say, hey, this is what I want help with. They'll direct you to the right place. And I'm going to take
Absolutely.
If I can take a short segue, oh my gosh, it is so cool. So we meet in the Stephen F. Austin building down in Austin, not far from the state capitol. But they have finished, and what they did is the street that ran in front of the Bob Bullock Museum, if people know where that is, and basically due north of the state capitol. They took that entire street out from, is that Martin Luther King? It might be Martin Luther King. All the way to the Capitol. The street is gone. And now it is a beautiful mall with sidewalks that you can walk, but cars can't come in there. And what it's also done, it's created, if you look one way, you have this beautiful view of our, and I'm sorry, I'm a proud Texan. We've got the prettiest state capitol in the country. There are some other nice ones. I love Wyoming's. I love a few other states. But we have this amazing capitol. If you look the other way, it's the tower on the University of Texas campus that another Marine helped really make famous back in the 60s. But what has happened is on that off of that mall, they have built 3 brand new buildings for state agencies. And I did not know this, Jim, but just the Fund for Veteran Assistance, just this one department of the Texas Veterans Commission was paying $7,000 a month. So I know people look at it and say, wow, that's a lot of government money going into those buildings long term. Not only are these buildings great, we've got room for expansion, we've got room to provide more service, but in the long run, it's actually going to be, and Jim being in real estate knows, this will actually be cheaper long term. Will be good for the state.
I think that's a tremendous benefit to the longevity of this, and it's going to be around. But let's back up and let's talk about the benefits that veterans in the state of Texas are entitled to. First of all, under education, we have the Hazelwood Act, which is a state deal. And your county veteran service officer can help you to get going with the Hazelwood Act, and they will pay all of your tuition for any state school. Correct, Chuck?
That is correct. Now, quick caveat: you have to have used up your GI Bill, although there is, and the experts at it can help you with it. There is a way to kind of use both at once, and like the GI Bill, your spouse may use it, your children may use it. Now, it is different from the GI Bill in that all it does is waive tuition and some fees, but not all fees. So it's not a freebie deal. You're not going to get paid from it, but it's really advantageous and a real benefit. And the one caveat I will throw in is that you have to have enlisted. You have to have started in the military from the state of Texas. It is strictly a Texan benefit. We had a lawsuit about that about 10 years ago. We almost lost the benefit, but we won the lawsuit because the state does, in fact, have the right to pick and choose who gets their benefits. And it had always been that way. They were trying to actually expand it. They said, no, this will just be for the people in the state of Texas. And the reason I bring that up, Jim, is we're going to talk about this more, especially Hazelwood, as we get a little down the road. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of people in higher education who don't like Hazelwood. They don't want to provide access to the classrooms for our veterans and our veterans family. And I actually think that's a little bit disgraceful. We're not going to go too far into politics today, but you're absolutely right. Now, here's one other thing you can get assistance with through the Texas Veterans Commission. You can get help with your GI Bill. Now, for the most part, most campuses are very set and are very capable of getting you plugged into the GI Bill program. And the reason for it is, unlike Hazelwood, which is where there's no money changing hands with Hazelwood, you're just taking a seat in a class. With the GI Bill, they're getting cash money. So it's funny, they'll say, oh, Hazelwood costs us millions every year. The federal government provides the state of Texas higher education with $2.5 billion with a B in cash payments every year. So don't tell me that you don't have money to support our veterans. Sorry, that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. I've fought for Hazelwood hard for the last 10 years.
Well, let's talk about something else that's near and dear, and why a lot of Texans are coming back to Texas, and a lot of Californians are coming to Texas as well, and that's employment services. There's a lot going on with employment and helping people. So tell us a little bit about what you learned about that, and what are they doing in veterans employment?
So this is another area, and the interesting thing, Jim, and you segued right into one of the things we were talking about off the air. Every 4 years, the Texas Veterans Commission does what we call a needs assessment. And generally this is performed, the actual survey, by Texas A&M University, which has been very good for our veterans. Jim and I don't like admitting that because, those Aggies, we're Longhorns, and there's that rivalry, but, I got to give them their props. They do a great job for our veterans. And the needs assessment goes out to the veterans who are going to be, and basically, any veteran can jump onto the survey. What are the needs in your area? Now, Texas is broken up into 8 regions in the state just to make sure, because every region of the state does not necessarily have the same needs, and we want to make sure we're serving the needs of our veterans statewide. And I say this, that attitude alone, instead of just doing this statewide, we're drilling down and we want to find the real numbers and we want to meet the real needs. And so I was amazed this year when they put the numbers up. Clinical health services is pretty much number 1 across the board, but employment has gone from number 5 up to number 2. So here's the thing. We were talking about Hazelwood. You can use Hazelwood, you can use your GI Bill for trade school. Let me tell you something, skilled labor training right now, and skilled labor training, we're not necessarily just talking about welders and pipe fitters and all of that good stuff. Not that there isn't incredible money to be made at that, because there is. But skilled labor training also incorporates things like cybersecurity, probably the number 1 growth industry from an employment standpoint in America. So there are all kinds of access to training. We have quite a few. I know most of our community colleges, we've got a great community college system around the state, have free for veterans, especially in the computer fields. And we're going to have, I was actually thinking about our future guests, we're going to have guests on from organizations like InPower, which does skilled labor training, computer IT training. Oh my gosh, and their name just, my good friend Jennifer works for, and I can't remember, but basically the same thing. It's skilled IT training. God, she's going to shoot me for not knowing their name. Hey, we're going to take a short pause. You are listening to
the Veterans Impact Show.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
Well, thank you for being part of our show today. We're talking about something very, very important to Texas veterans, but veterans nationwide, because they need to know about this and maybe support efforts within their own state. And we're talking about the Texas Veterans Commission. Let me tell you a quick story, Chuck. I had a Korean War veteran who was terribly, terribly hard of hearing. And I said to him, why don't you go to the VA and get some health care? And he said, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to go through all that paperwork, and that's just a train wreck and blah, 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 and they can't help me. And I hooked him up with James Henderson of the Texas Veterans Commission. They got all this paperwork done, and they took him down to the VA, and he got $6,000 worth of hearing aids and a 20% disability, which reduced his real estate taxes. Now, that's how important and how effective being able to get into the system is, and then having an advocate like James Henderson and the Texas Veterans Commission. So now we're talking about employment, and I think that's so critically important because a lot of people are underemployed today. And you mentioned cybersecurity. There's also call center training. How about medics? A lot of medics are vastly, they're tremendously trained in the military, but they're not certified. They can't get a job. So tell us a little bit about what TVC does as we're talking about employment.
So one of the things, and you mentioned it, we're going to kind of do a little bit of it because this falls into education as well. The TVC has been at the forefront of pushing for more accreditation and certification of our military experience. And that has been very, very important because for years that was a bugaboo, if you will, in the state. And a lot of it, it's follow the money. And so you've got to have a state that's behind it to push organizations to say, okay, it's the right thing to do. And let's face it, it looks good in other areas. So it's not all just about the money, but it is about making sure our veterans get paid. So the faster that you can get certified, the cheaper it is for you, the quicker you can get into it. And these are all high-paying jobs. Most of our veterans are seeing they've got the ability, if they can get plugged in quickly enough. And you mentioned medical, and that is huge because the need there is tremendous. But you and I were both in the aviation field. Our aviation mechanics, our avionics technicians, all of the people that work in aviation, the guys who worked on the engines. I have my old crew chief lives in my neighborhood, one of my old crew chiefs, and he works for a major company here that rebuilds aircraft engines. They have over 700 employees. It's an incredible operation. So we talk about that, and part of what the Texas Veterans Commission does, and if you think of it all as cogs in this greater mechanism, all these intermeshing wheels, if you will, TVC very much becomes the primary driver for our veterans in Texas, and we're the, think of it this way, we're the oil that makes it all work a little better, last a little longer, makes it better for everybody. I want to go back to something that you said, Jim, and it's a really valid point. We've got several major military bases here in Texas. All of our Air Force guys come here and train down in San Antonio, where I'm from. We've got huge Army bases, the Army Futures Command, and we've interviewed the Army Futures Command on the show, and we're probably going to interview them again this year. All of the things they're doing in terms of forward innovation. Fort Hood is simply the largest U.S. military base in the world, and thousands and thousands of servicemen not only enter the state from Texas, and Texas is, I believe, #1 pretty consistently in producing recruits into our armed forces. But these guys come here and they see the state, and the amazing thing is we don't have to do this sales pitch. The state sells itself. people want to live here. There is a reason Texas and Florida are two of the largest states in terms of migration population on the positive side. Both of them gained congressional seats because we're getting larger and larger. And we took them away from a couple of states they don't think like us politically. But one of the reasons is because they don't forward think. Texas, Florida, they forward think. I will match the benefits from the Texas Veterans Commission and what we do against any state in the nation. In fact, I know for a fact I have gotten calls from the state of California talking about the committee that I'm on, the Fund for Veteran Assistance. And let's keep this show more about TVC. We'll talk about that more later. I'll throw in a brief plug for it. We are the Veteran Impact Show. Like us on Facebook.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
Chuck, you've been leading us in a great conversation because you were on the benefits board of the TVC, and you just spent all day yesterday down in Austin with the TVC. Can we talk about the benefits board? Because you guys spent or gave away an enormous amount of money this last year that came from the Texas lottery, and most people don't know that. I think that that's a huge thing that we need to tell people about. You buy a lottery ticket, you're going to help a veteran, correct?
Exactly. And ours, there are veteran-specific scratch-offs, and we get the money from those veteran-specific scratch-offs. So I ask people, if you like to play the scratch-off game, support veterans. So this year, in the next coming weeks, and that's what our meeting yesterday was about, is that we were talking about how we're going to dole out money. The money is going to go to nonprofits and organizations that serve veterans. The money has to be spent on Texas veterans. Sorry about that. And it has to stay in the state of Texas. So we're pretty specific. It is state money. So I'm going to give you the warning sign. The warning is these are reimbursement grants. These are not just we're going to write your organization a check and you can do whatever you want with it. You're going to have to account for every dime of it. So if your organization is very, very small, now if you're very effective and you can keep track of all those numbers, by all means, apply for a grant. And we can accept grant applications down to $5,000 a year. So what I tell a lot of the smaller organizations, apply for a smaller grant so that the work is not so heavy and not so onerous. And I'll just give you a little inside baseball. We like to approve a lot of grants. So the smaller ones, believe it or not, and I think it's just psychology. I don't think there's anything untoward about it. A lot of the smaller ones get approved a little bit more quickly than the larger ones, but that's what we do. We grade these grants and we put them in order. Because despite the fact that there will be $30 million this year, the request hit $49 million. So the need is still large. So again, for all my scratch-off guys, please hit that veteran scratch-off. It really helps. And we have grown. It is absolutely amazing. It is an indication of how much the state has grown. Because when I started on the board 8 years ago, we were only at 18 million. So it has almost doubled. I'm looking forward to that day it doubles. That'll be an exciting time. And we've made the process better. Major props to my friend, retired Marine Colonel Jim Bracken, who is the director of the Fund for Veteran Assistance. He's doing an incredible job down in Austin. He's got a great team. And, yeah, we're doing fun stuff. So that's on the benefit side. But if you're a nonprofit, and we need to get our friend Rex King and everybody else who's been on the show, if you're not applying for a grant, you need to, or take a look at it. So, again, let's go back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. If you will go to that, and let's pop the page up, if you will go to the Texas Veterans Commission site, and you will see, so across what I call the tabs bar, underneath Texas Veterans Commission are all the things that we do. We have programs for entrepreneurs. We've got programs for women. We've got healthcare advocacy, which is a little bit different than the mental health advocacy. So we have programs there to help you find the help that you need. But specifically on grants, if you're interested in a grant, hit that grant bar, and when it comes up, there are 2 or 3 YouTube-style videos. Definitely watch the first one. If you meet the criteria, continue to watch the rest, because they'll walk you through how to do this. And everybody that I've talked to, please don't call me, because I have no idea how to write a grant. I don't work on that side. The staff grades those grants, and then they send them to us. We do the recommendations, and we don't make the decisions. Those decisions will go on and be voted on by our 5 Texas veteran commissioners who oversee everything with the Texas Veterans Commission.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about some of the people who got grants, or the organizations. I know Carry the Load was one that got a grant. eQuest was one that got a grant. Can you think of some others that people would go, oh, I know what that is?
And actually, Carry the Load did not get a grant. And we're going to talk about, we're going to have Carry the Load on. This is an organization. Wearing my Carry the Load shirt this morning. You guys will notice I wear a lot of these. I've been a proud load carrier for 8 years. I have earned load carrier status, which gets you a T-shirt, not much else, but that's okay. I go down on Memorial Day, and we honor those that we've lost. We honor the fallen, and it's green side, red side, blue side. We honor the first responders. We honor the police, and we honor our veterans. Carry the Load wasn't, but eQuest was, and that brings up a great point. We have grants in 5 different categories. You can apply for a grant in up to 3 different categories. Now, 2 of them are, one of them is Veteran Treatment Court, and we do a lot of funding for Veteran Treatment Court, which is an incredible program. We'll have John Roach or somebody from his staff on to talk about what they're doing at some point in the future. Look forward to that show. It's incredible. But we were talking about the County Veteran Service Officer program. We have a separate grant, so you have to be a County Veteran Service Officer to apply for that grant. So those are the 2 that are kind of exclusive, but then we have 3. We have Homes for Texas Heroes, which are part of the rehabilitation plans. One of the programs I'm most proud of to support, groups like Habitat for Humanity, Rebuilding Greater Dallas, or Rebuilding Greater Houston. Rebuilding programs are regional specific. And they apply for grants, and they go into our veteran homes, and they rehab them. You may have a veteran who has disabilities, who needs a ramp. And I got to tell this story from our friend Dennis Llewellyn. He was down in South Dallas, not far from the Veteran Resource Center, not far from the VA hospital. And there was a lady who was sitting up in her wheelchair on her porch. And Dennis, if you know Dennis, you know that he's never met a stranger. He starts talking to her. And finally he asks a question. He goes, what is the one thing that you need? She goes, I'd love to be able to get off this porch. Now, she was not a veteran, but this was with Rebuilding Greater Dallas, so that wasn't a problem. But what he did that afternoon is he got a crew to come over and build her a ramp. She was absolutely in tears, because the first time in forever she could visit her neighbor next door, because she could not come off that ramp because she was in a wheelchair. And we are hoping that Jim doesn't wind up in a wheelchair, so we need him to start taking care of himself. Yeah. We like giving him a hard time.
2023 has not been good medically for me.
Not been good for you, but we will keep that going. And, hey, on Facebook, throw him that little heart sign or the little thumbs up or something like that. And Jim will get the message of get well soon. We'll have all of our readers sign an electronic greeting card. So specifically, and I didn't mention to her, we have a general category. Financial aid goes in there. Employment services goes in there. Anything that doesn't quite fit. So the last one, I saved the best for last because I wanted to talk about eQuest. The first time I attended an FVA meeting, the Fund for Veteran Assistance meeting, was when our good friend Jeff Hensley was applying for a grant for eQuest, and he was the driver for a long time behind it's the Who's for Heroes program, which is the veterans arm of eQuest. eQuest is an incredible equine facility down in on the Trinity River bottoms, down by I'm trying to think of the golf course. They did the Byron there for a while, and it was actually really cool. Is that the Trinity Golf Course? I'm not a golfer. which is weird because I run a golf tournament, but no, I don't golf.
Trinity Forest.
Trinity Forest, thank you. There we go. I knew Jim would bounce that in. But here's a program that got assistance from us that was able to help 200 veterans and their families. So it's veterans, spouses, and their dependents. Incredible mental health program. So another good friends of ours over at One Tribe. Sorry, they've changed their name recently. It used to be 22 Kill. Proudly wearing my 22 Kill ring to create awareness for veteran suicide. But their mental health program is called Stay the Course. That was created by Tempa. I can't remember Tempa's last name. It's always just been Tempa. Tempa Cheryl, and she has moved over to the Meadows Foundation.
Cheryl, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely incredible work. I will never forgive her husband. He got the Audi sports car years ago and gave my son, who was 12 at the time, a ride. And now my son thinks of cars as sports cars. No, I don't want a sedan, Dad. Oh, sports car. Jerk. I'm trying to think of some of the other programs that we have supported. Certainly, as I said, 22 Kill. United Way of Tarrant County has been another. The Texas Veterans Network. Got to give a shout out to our boy Gus Karbakis, who's been on the show a couple of times, who now works for the Texas Veterans Network. And again, these are organizations that are trying to connect our veterans. And you will find these organizations listed. So if you want to see that list, pop on that grants column of the Texas Veterans site, Texas Veteran Commission site, and you can see our past recipients of these awards. So you want to do your own research? This is a great way to do it. And one of the reasons that I say this is, I hate to admit this, but in the nonprofit space, there are some players, some of them have bad intentions, some of them have good intentions, but are just poorly run. This is one way to check out if an organization has been vetted at all. Now, I'm not saying it's a be-all, end-all. You got to do your own research and you got to drill deep, but it is a great way to find resources in your region. And so part of the point we're trying to get out to all of our veterans, if you don't know where to look, this is a phenomenal place to start with no axe to grind. The Texas Veterans Commission will never ask you for a dime. And we're going to set you up with organizations that are built to serve you. So for the most part, none of our organizations are looking for you to pay money. These are benefits for our veterans and benefits that the state funds. And that's extremely important. As I said, when military, active duty military come here, they wind up seeing a state that is very friendly to veterans. We love our veterans in the state, even if it's something.
Hey, Chuck.
Yo, yes, sir.
Besides the fact that it's free, it's effective. That's the most amazing thing. It is effective to be able to get things done. If you got a chance, could you talk about mental health initiative as well?
So one of the things the Texas Veterans Commission does, and speaking of good friends, and we'll talk about retired Colonel Ginger Simonson. She is an awardee of Dr. Michael Burgess' 26th Congressional District's Veteran Commendation Award. Very proud of her for that. I should be. I wrote it. Nominated her. We got a half a dozen other people to join in that nomination. But she works for the Military Veteran Peer-to-Peer Network. This is very, very important. This is a way for you to, and your family, and this is one of the things that I want to stress. Texas recognizes this is not just about the individual veteran, but is the impact on the family. And it is absolutely heartwarming. And I'll tell this story. I will bring Rees Across America into this. First year I'm out at Rees Across America, I have a lady walk up to me. Jeff Hensley, we're talking about Jeff Hensley and the Who's for Heroes program, which is part of that mental health arm. But she came up and talked to me about how it didn't just save her husband. It saved their marriage, and they had a small child, and they were heading in the wrong direction. And it was, we all have demons. The demons come out at night. the worst. When we're not busy doing something else, when we're not distracted from it. It's one of the sad things that I've come to realize is a lot of our veteran suicides are guys that have retired. Guys and girls. Girls tend to, props to the women, you don't take your lives quite as often. And there's an element that I understand that, but reach out. So we'll talk about the Military Veteran Peer-to-Peer Network, and that's, again, not the only one. But this is an organization that is supported by, funded by the state of Texas. We put cash money into it. It is for veterans. It is for their dependents. It is an incredible program to connect people. And this is outside of the VA. These are programs that you can go to. The Cohen Foundation is another one. Sorry, I was thinking about that. Thinking about programs that are out there. They can pick up the phone and call, make an appointment, and get in and get some help. Here's the other thing. Jim, you know this as well as I do, and we've talked about this on the show. Maybe I'm beating a dead horse. But veterans get out. We get out of the service. We get into that period they call transition. And the weird thing is, it may be 6 weeks, maybe 6 months, it may be 6 years. Our veterans completely get away from the military. And then we look up, and I call this the groundhog effect. Oh, no, the prairie dog effect. Excuse me, the prairie dog. If you ever seen a prairie dog come up out of a hole and he's kind of doing this because he's looking all over for predators, we look around and we're like, I miss that community. And so if you're looking for that, if you want to know more about what's available in Texas, if you just want to browse the site and find out what the Texas Veterans Commission's got going on, I absolutely encourage you to hop on the website and do that. We are the Veteran Impact Show. We appreciate you tuning in for us. Follow us on Facebook. Like us on YouTube.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
Okay.
Chuck, I am so appreciative of all you're doing, and I'm hacking up fur balls at Sierra Mountain Line right now.
I'm not sure our listeners really cared about that. A little too much information. But sorry about that.
They said something in the air down here to us, and it's getting to me.
Yeah, but, that is a negative in Texas. If you're allergic to cedar, you might want to think about getting shots. My wife, we literally, until this story, we talked about, we were going to a Longhorn spring game. We're down at my mom's house in San Antonio. We're going to drive up to the spring game, and I was trying to figure out if Jim was putting something up on the screen that we needed to see, but he wasn't. We have a lot of fun on the show. Sometimes we're a little irreverent. Easy for me to say. Anyway, she woke up. The cedar was bad. It's much worse in South Texas than North. And I called my buddies from the emergency room, and I said, hey, she's getting breathing treatments. We ain't going to make the game, so don't look for us. Hated to do it, but hated worse. I felt for her so badly that weekend, and we literally went back, grabbed our stuff from my mom's, and drove back to North Texas after she was finally released. Kind of made for a long trip for no reason, but that's the one warning. And there's pros and cons to every state in the nation. I like our pros a lot more. I've traveled to a bunch of them, lived in a bunch of them. California is absolutely gorgeous. But they don't call it the land of fruits and nuts for nothing, and I'm not talking about the fruits and the nuts. So, Jim, what are we going to talk about next? We've talked about mental health. We've talked about employment. And, again, Google Texas Veterans or Texas Veterans Commission. You will pop up and find the Texas Veterans Commission website. Across what I call the tab bar just below the title, you will find all kinds of resources for you. And as I've said, if you want to do nothing else but call us and say, I need help with X, and I guarantee you the operator that answers will go, okay, you need to talk to so-and-so. Because so-and-so will direct you to the right source. And you know, one of the things we're not talking about enough, we actually need to be make part of the show. We now have a new support line, 988. is the new number to call. Everybody's
Press
finally
one
agreed.
if you're a veteran.
Press 1 if you're a veteran, absolutely. So we finally have that done. This is really more for emergency help, but guess what? Call 988, press 1. And if you want to help with education, they will route you to the right place. And I'll tell you where they're going to route you. They're going to route you to the Texas Veterans Commission. So we're going to bypass a step there if you want to hit the website yourself. It is a great website. It's full of YouTube videos. We are run by, the nice thing about being next to a major university, we get a lot of really sharp young interns and young people that are coming out and looking for jobs. And they do a great job of keeping the website part of the 21st century. So it's nice because a lot of our veterans, it is scary to think, Jim, that we have veterans that served their entire time and have retired from the military all in the 21st century.
Yeah.
We don't know how to deal
Chuck,
with
how
that.
close are we to the end
of
our program?
Oh,
here?
we've got we got 2 whole minutes. So we're gonna, as you like to say, we're gonna bring this ship into the port, and we generally do that. We're gonna babble for about 60 seconds and let you have let you close us out with prayer. And let me hit the line items again right quick. We're talking about the Texas Veterans Commission. Thank you, Jim, for letting me talk about one of the subjects I'm most passionate about and some of the work I'm most proud of doing. I serve as the vice chair of the Fund for Veteran Assistance Committee, and will do so through the end of this year. And then we've got a new process, which I think will be changed shortly, but we're not going to talk about that. And talking about the employment service, the mental health service, the County Veteran Service Officer Service. Jim, go ahead.
Well, Lord God, we thank you for the Texas Veterans Commission, and we thank you for all of our veterans and all they do to support not only the veterans community, but the civilian community as well. Lord God, we thank you for protecting all of our active duty troops and our first responders, wherever they are around the world, keeping us safe. So, Lord God, we thank you for those who raised their right hand and said, I will. And they signed up. So thank you, Lord God, for so many wonderful, wonderful blessings. This we pray in your holy name. Amen. And have a great, great day. And whatever you do, stay indoors because, boy, let me tell you, I'm tired of coughing.
Thanks for tuning in.